God bless everybody today. This is a Middle East update. I've been trying to get to this for a while. There's been a lot going on, so I'm trying to keep up with everything. And as information is starting to come out um, faster and faster, it's harder and harder to keep up with the streams out here. So I just realize I'm doing the best I can to give you this information. About a week or so ago, we started this breakout with the Kurds. The story sort of gets into this. I'm going to go into a bunch of other articles that sort of show you that we're ramping up on the Kurdish side and where this is ramping up and why I believe this feeds into everything that we just talked about. If you go out and look at my video that I just did about Ezekiel and how he explains what's coming in the future in my last video, I believe that will go into some detail and add depth to what I'm explaining here. So let's look at some of these articles. I think it's extremely important, and we're getting into October, and I've been talking about this October 10th date for some time now. So the U.S. backed Kurdish-led forces in eastern Syria battled the Arab tribal unrest, and so we're having the SDF, or the Syrian Democratic Forces, led by the Kurdish forces, pouring reinforcements into this Deir al-Zor province, and you can go look at where that is, and that is important. So when you go into the map, you can see that this is that province. And I've talked about how the Kurds, as Syria comes down through here, the Kurds are going to flank them and get repelled, and then they're going to fall back to the east based on Alexander's moves in the past. This is what happened when Alexander came down through Turkey into Lebanon and went down through Israel into Egypt. This is going to be the same thing that plays out in the future. This area here is starting to light up, and actually all these areas in here are starting to light up, and you're going to start to see this play out around Appello and some of these other areas as we move forward. So we've had this unrest in this area. They're starting to do a lot more bombings. Turkey's bombing, Russia's bombing. There's all kinds of bombings going on in this area. It's ramping up tremendously fast, and so I want to keep you updated. But realize that in this localized fighting, there's been over 40 fighters on both sides and 15 civilians killed. This was a few days ago, and so this is still raging on. Realize that. And then if you remember, if you go back into my last video about Ezekiel, we talked about Ammon and the Amorites and how the West Bank area is going to be affected by these areas as we move forward. So just realize that this is all prophecy that's playing out in front of us. The SDF is going to be a major factor as we move forward. A lot of things are happening on the tribal fronts. A lot of these are nomad type people. The Kurdish people are regional nomads in a way because they don't really exist in any one specific place. They're all over the place, and they reside in 4 different countries or more. So you just have to understand what's going on over here. And as I move through these articles today, you're going to start to see there is a massive ramp up, and this is starting to affect us greatly. Now realize that there's all these meetings going on right now between multiple leaders, between Syria, Russia, Iraq, Turkey, you name it, Iran. All these countries are having trying to put deals together, trying to figure out which side they're going to be on as this starts to break down, and you're starting to watch massive protests start to occur along these borders and in these cities that are being affected. So in this article, all this is today or in the last 24 to 48 hours that I'm showing you here mostly. So I'm just set up the original article because that showed you this has started to just break out in the last week or so, and I talked about how we move into September, into that October 10th date. We're going to watch some really intense things happen as we move forward here, and this really breaks out. So we have this article, Iran-Iraq deal on Iranian Kurds puts the Iraqi Kurds between a rock and hard place. And so the Kurds, whoops, sorry about that. The Kurds are not getting any help. Okay, you have to understand, and there's Erbil right there. So in this regional capital, they're having all kinds of trouble in this area around Erbil, and this is the regional capital, and this is also Gaugamela. And like I said, when we get into Erbil, when these Kurds fall back towards the east in this regional capital, and then Turkey comes over and crushes this area here, they're going to fall down to Baghdad and then pushed into Shush. They'll align with the Iranians, and Turkey will come down, follow them, and basically crush them based on prophecy of Daniel 8. So realize that they're being affected not only in Syria but Iraq, and the Iraqi government in Baghdad as well as the Assad government are working against the Kurds at this point. And they're starting to neutralize these groups and drive them into a position to where now they're having to lash out also, as you're starting to see in these articles. Now remember, the last article was in Iraq. This is in Syria. They're putting down curfews because they're trying to control the protests and all the unrest. And there's a lot of people getting killed on the ground in these different regions. And so we're watching this inflate. You're going to see this really, really break out as we move forward. Sorry about the ads. I can't do anything about them. I'm not going to block them. I'm not paying to block them. So, just realize that I'm just trying to show you the articles. You can see what's going on. It's all talking about the SDF. When you're talking about the SDF, you're talking about the Kurdish forces, and they are now in the news big time if you know where to look. And nobody's talking about the Kurds, so I'll guarantee it. They're not talking about this stuff. So when we're talking Iran, you're talking Hezbollah and Hamas. And we're also talking Lebanese or Lebanon and these armies up in that area. And so all these areas are being affected. West Bank's being affected, Lebanon's being affected. Talked about how Beirut and Tyre are going to be affected in Lebanon tremendously as we move forward. And then we talked about this West Bank area around Ammon, which is in the Bible, and we showed you those maps in the last video. How that's going to affect this northwest region, and how this northwest region is starting to actually amplify at this very moment. We're starting to see a lot more movement into this area. This is where Turkey's going to break out. They're going to come down into that area into Lebanon. They're going to push the Kurds to the east, and this is all going to collapse fairly soon. Hezbollah put out some demands to do some UN peacekeeping type stuff, and they've been basically denied. This is all about movement of weapons and stuff, and I've talked about movement of weapons through these groups of people, these humanitarian groups, that they're actually disguised as humanitarian, but they're actually shipping weapons through these areas. And so when you go through here, realize there's a lot going on the ground right now. If you're not hearing about any of this, because they don't want you to hear about it, because they're afraid that another war is going to break out in the Middle East, and they don't want to scare people out here, but it is coming. So this resolution orders the Lebanese groups to stop blocking movements in the UN peacekeeping force, because of course Hezbollah is trying to get weapons through there, and they're saying, no, you can't do that. We're going to stand firm against this terrorist group and their provocations. And so the UN is not backing Hezbollah at this moment. So this is all really starting to build up, and these groups are starting to organize, okay? And this is extremely important because this is going to break out in the next month or so as we walk into that October 10th date that I keep throwing down. And there may not be anything to that date, but it sure seems to be like things are building up to something going to happen. And these are all brand new articles, like I say. So Iran fights for control as it meets with Hamas and Hezbollah chiefs in Lebanon. And you got to understand, both these groups are proxies of Iran. So Iran calls the shots, but Hamas and Hezbollah are only going to be held on a leash so long and then they're going to be released, okay? And when this happens, it's going to get extremely ugly out here. So do realize that we're having these huge meetings. Iran is fighting for influence in Lebanon with foreign minister basically saying that Iran is ready to help Lebanon economically. But of course, they're going to come in and try to prop these groups up and maintain them and keep control of these populations as Iran keeps expanding their dominance in this area. And so it's extremely important that we look at this, but realize that we're watching right now, we're watching Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas coordinate for a potential attack that's coming up as we move forward here. Now, you got to realize Israel is under a serious amount of tension. Their whole system is literally breaking down. We're talking about Joel 1. You know, everything breaks down, their economy, they're going to have famine, they're going to have pestilence, they're going to have economic collapse, they're going to have all kinds of stuff happen prior to this attack of Gog and these armies coming in from Turkey. Now they're going to be originally attacked by Hamas and Hezbollah and all these groups, and Turkey's going to come down to try to protect that Temple Mount, and that's going to cause them to invade Israel and end up in Egypt before this is done. But they're going to go through Lebanon as they come down into Syria. And this is the same movement pattern that Alexander the Great did in the past. So in this article, Israel says they are close to launching a military action in Lebanon amid tension because they are under massive tension at this very moment. Now this was on August 31st, and so Israel knows it's coming. They're getting ready. It's a multi-front war, mainly on the northern front, but once Hezbollah kicks in, you're going to see Hamas kick in on the south. You're going to see a number of groups hit them from the west through Syria and different things like that. And so Israel is going to be under a duress they've not seen, and they are not ready for this. The Bible tells us, and if they say they're ready, then they're fooling themselves, because if you go into the Bible, it clearly tells them they will not be ready for this, and they will be under judgment, and we will watch potentially a massive it basically indicates 2/3 of this population of Jews will perish and a third will be saved. So this is going to be very horrific, and it's going to happen quickly, and this is going to change the whole world and the Middle East, and that will radiate out to the rest of the world, and it will affect us as well as we move into the beast system, as we move into 24 and 25. So but right now we're watching this potential Daniel 8 effect happening. The Kurds are extremely important. They are the Medes in the history books. You need to go back and understand that. They're going to affect this also as we move forward. But Israel is accusing Hezbollah groups of escalating tension along the borderline. And you just saw those meetings that they're having, which they're organizing these groups so that they can create resistance, because they feel, as I've shown you in many articles, that their best action is resistance against Israel. And lo and behold, look at the next article that was in line here. Interesting. Resistance is the strongest position. Iran for FM to Hezbollah chiefs. So the foreign minister is telling the Hezbollah chief, please resist. You know, we don't have a problem with this. You go right ahead, do the best job you can, and we'll back you. And we'll actually bring in economic support to help you. And so you can continue this war against our enemy. Our mortal enemy is Israel. And Iran has for some time been talking about wiping Israel off the map. And if you go into the Bible, it indicates clearly that when we get down to the end here, that no nation will come to rescue Israel, that they'll be left on their own. So Israel is going to be under massive duress as we move forward in the next few months. And Iran is going to start this, but Turkey is going to finish this. But if you go into Daniel 8, you realize that Turkey is also destroyed in this process. So nobody really wins in this one. Iran's going to lose, the Kurds are going to lose, Turkey's going to lose it after they attack Israel, and Israel's going to be decimated, and 2/3 of their population are going to be destroyed, and 1/3 are going to be removed to the hidden place prior to the tribulation of Antichrist being brought upon this planet, as I show on the paradigm at the spring of 24, I believe. So. In this article, Hamas is considering resuming mass protests along the Gaza border. So that's what I mean. This isn't just a northern battle. You're going to see this unleash on multiple fronts. Israel is basically surrounded, and they got an ocean on their west side. Okay, and there's actual potential issues there because you got the Black Sea there, and so this is. And the Mediterranean Sea, excuse me. So you got to watch that. That's really going to affect them. And Turkey can move down through the Black Sea into the Mediterranean Sea through Istanbul. So there's a lot going on. Turkey's going to have a lot of control here as we move forward. And if this breaks out, this would then affect your grains from Ukraine and all these other areas that are landlocked in the Black Sea area, and that is a huge area of grain production for the world, and that would then affect food prices and different things like that. So, but realize that we're having this is going to break out. I keep saying this is going to break out at any time. You're going to see everybody's on board. God is in control. He's forcing this upon Israel. Israel is going to be under judgment. They keep saying that they're awesome and everything's good, and they just don't have to think about it because God's going to protect them. So they're unaware that they're under massive duress, and this is going to all break out at one time. And it's interesting in that verse in Ezekiel, it talks about the first day of the first month. I keep looking at the first day of the first month, which was yesterday, and we're starting to watch this thing break out tremendously as we move forward into October. You got to wonder if God actually has given us a possible roadmap here into what's happening in front of us. So in this article, we have the ex-Israeli defense minister saying basically Hamas is behind all attacks on Israel targets, which is just ridiculous because Hezbollah is also a major contributor to this. But you're watching, if you're talking about Gaza, yes. If you're talking about these West Bank attacks, things like that. Yes, Hamas is also working with Hezbollah in this process, and that's what I mean. You got to watch the Palestinians, you got to watch Hamas, you got to watch Hezbollah, you got to watch the Lebanese, so Lebanese army. You got so many players over here. It's really hard to keep up with them, and so I don't really try to keep up with all of the ins and outs of the players. I just try to realize that all these groups are affecting Israel as we move forward. So just realize that there are many, many groups affecting Israel on the ground at one time. So we're also talking about Libya and Turkey discussing military cooperation. Libya is a big part of this picture, and so all these things are starting to coalesce at one time. That's what I keep saying. This is going to happen extremely fast. Nobody is seeing this coming. And there's so many working parts that if you don't know what to really look for and you really aren't on top of this, you're not going to see it before it hits you. So now I think this article is extremely important because the fighting between Arab tribes and the Kurds, or the SDF, spreads to northwest Syria. Wow, around Appello. And I've been talking about Appello and how they're going to come down around Appello because that's how Alexander did it. And that when they come down, Turkey invades. We're going to then watch the Kurds with a counter movement towards the north, but they'll be repelled towards the east, and so the Kurds will fail, and we will watch that attack then collapse towards the east, towards Erbil. Turkey will then go down into Lebanon and then down into Egypt, but they're going to come back and deal with the Kurds over time, which is the Daniel 8 part of the prophecy. So this is interesting that now we're watching the Kurds spread more attacks towards the Arab tribes, or the Arab tribes attacking the Kurds, however you want to look at this. Towards the northeast side, which is where we talk about that invasion point that I've been talking about for so long now. So I do post on my Facebook page articles about what's coming up as current events, so people can follow these events. If you want to join my page, that's fine. This is just a personal page. I also have an end of days survival Facebook page. I do post things on, but with everything going on right now, I'm stressed on time, and so I'm doing my best to post this stuff as it comes up. In this article, the police say in Tel Aviv and the clashes between these groups finally have been under control, and there was 140 people hurt. I'm just showing you that you're also having protests and clashes in Iran. Also, different things are happening. All this is breaking down in this whole region at this very moment. So in this article, the leader of Hezbollah, Nasrallah, I'm probably killing these names, meets Hamas and the Palestinians to unite terror front against Israel. And so they are working in tandem together to basically attack Israel all in one shot, okay? And you're heading them with multiple fronts from the north, west, and south, okay? This is going to cause Israel all kinds of issues to try to protect multiple fronts at one time. And then we're going to watch an invasion by Turkey come up here real soon. So this is going to get extremely interesting quickly. And now we're watching demonstrations break out in Syria for the calling of President Assad to resign, because they know, look, the populations have to be under massive duress and stress right now as they're watching all this break out in front of them, and the world is getting ready to be upended. They know it's coming, and they're looking for answers, but Assad is not going to help these people. I mean, he literally chemically attacked these people at one time in his leadership government career. So realize Assad is not going to be a friend to any of these people. And so demonstrations are breaking out not only in Iraq, Syria, Iran. There's some demonstrations in Turkey. They also get demonstrations here in Syria. All these things are happening all at one time. And if you don't think that we're not walking into a potential SEALs war, then you need to open your eyes and see what's in front of you here. And here in this article, it tells you again that Syrian protests are intensifying and is reminiscent of the early days of the 2011 civil war. This is a mass. It's going to, all these things are affecting the Middle East tremendously. This economy, all these people are being affected. It's going to break out even more. It's ramping up quickly. We're going to see, they're already seeing, as this indicates, these protests are concerned with the elimination of fuel subsidies, because we're watching fuels move up towards that 90 a barrel. Again, it's going to probably hit triple digits as we move forward here fairly soon. I've seen a report, and it may be crazy talk, I've seen a report where fuel could hit $300 a barrel. Can you imagine what inflation would do at $300 a barrel? Resulting in massive price increases between 15 and 20%. That is huge inflation on a population that's already distressed. Okay, and these people know that. They can't move freight because fuels are so high and people can't afford to pay these things, and people don't have the liquid income to buy anything, and the whole system breaking down as we're getting ready to watch a huge war break out in this area. And so yes, these people are being affected greatly. Now this is going to be a little longer video because I found this really interesting site, and I had not seen this site. I don't think I've ever been on this site, but it brought a lot of articles, and I'm going to sort of track this site, and you may want to track it also. Turkey is bombing the Syrian Arabs army in Idlib. Okay, so now you got Turkey coming into this, and we're talking about them Arab armies that are being affected by the Kurds also. The SDF are fighting against now they're not, look, the Kurds and Turkey are not friends here, but they're all fighting the Arab armies on the ground that are in these areas, okay? This is just, well, it's calls the third, but it's actually the second on my calendar. It's they're about 12 hours or so ahead of us. So these pro-Kurdish Syrian fighters and Turkish troops are basically both bombing the Arab areas, and they're getting ready for a battle as we move forward, I believe. So the SDF, or the Kurds, now are announcing on the 1st that they're starting military operations to confront the Arab tribes, and that's what I keep talking about. You're watching Turkey and the Kurds go against them, and sooner or later they're going to end up hitting each other and clashing also. So you're going to watch Turkey and the Kurds get into this into a big way as it starts to ramp up. And in this article, the Arab tribes are giving the coalition, or the SDF, 12-hour ultimatum to break the siege. So this is ramping up on multiple fronts, and you have to look at these nomad type groups, these Arabs that they're sort of tents type cities. I don't know how to explain it. Anyway, you're gonna watch these different groups go at it, but look how the SDF is a major part in all these different areas and how they're going to be affected. And these are the Kurds, and these are the Medes in the past, and so we need to watch the Kurds, as I've been talking about for some time, and you're not watching anyone else talking about them at this point. So in this article, we're talking about the Syrian army, because they're involved also here, repelling intense attacks in Appello. Okay, and I talked about Appello up in that area where Turkey's going to come down through. That's being bombed by not only Syria, Turkey, and it's also having bombings by Russia, and we're in those areas also. So it's being, a lot is happening in this area here. And this is that area of Appello that I talk about, where he would come down from Turkey into Syria, and he would start that invasion. I believe that will be the main front to this attack from Turkey. And just a few days ago, we had violent blasts rocking, this was the 27th of August, violent blasts rocking Turkish bases in Appello. Okay, so now Turkey's going down and dealing with this Arab issue because they've been bombed. And so now Turkey's now unleashing their military on these areas, and they're also retaliating. So there's so much more going on out here, guys, but I'm going to cut it off here. I just wanted to bring you an update. The Kurds are massively in the news right now. Realize that the Medes or the Kurds are going to make a huge impact on the Middle East, and Turkey's going to invade at any time and go against them, as we're watching them, literally the Kurds and Turkey, clash against these Arab nations. They're going to cause a conflict between the Kurds and Turkey that will inflame, that will then cause an invasion by Turkey. The Kurds will retaliate with an attack to the northern side as they come down, and that will be repelled and pushed towards Erbil, and Turkey will then come down into Lebanon and Tyre as it indicates in Ezekiel. In that study that I just did yesterday, talks about how Tyre is going to be extremely important, and then they go from Tyre to Egypt as we watch this whole area basically break down. But also realize that once Turkey comes down and collapses the Kurds and they dry them out of that area, the only place that they really have to go is towards the east and southeast and towards Iran. And if you look at Iran and you look at that border that I've talked about many times on the west side of Iran, those are Kurdistan nations. And so you're going to watch this massive flow of people, refugees, moving toward Iran, which is going to put pressure on them, which is going to force them to align with the Kurds because they have an interest in that, to then go against Turkey. But that's going to fail for both these nations of Iran and the Kurds. They will fall. This happens like a whirlwind, as he indicates, so it's going to happen extremely quickly. But it indicates also in Daniel 8 that this Turkish leader, when he goes against Israel with his 10 nations, will fail, and he will also be destroyed. That then would start to move us into the Antichrist phase. So we'll get to that phase when we get there. Right now we're talking about Daniel 8 and Ezekiel 38 and 39. And hopefully we'll have the ability to continue this conversation as we move forward. And we have the freedom of speech on these platforms to do this. So God bless everybody. Find the open door. Find Jesus. He's the only way to the Creator. He's the only way to get to heaven. If you want to get to the next level of existence, you have to believe in the Son, Jesus. We do have a long weekend. You have a Labor Day weekend. And so if you're traveling or going anywhere, please be safe. Hopefully everybody gets home and to their families safely. God bless everybody. Have a great day.